Hi, everyone. We are so glad you are back for this month's edition of our digital marketing series. I'm Heather Zessiger, and I'm with the Campus COVID-19 Vaccination and Mitigation Initiative, a project of ACHA, and I'm thrilled you're all here. I will put the link in the chat so you can see the upcoming events as well, and you can find recordings at that site of the previous sessions that we've done. Now I will turn it over to Hannah and Molly with Youth Marketing Connection.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be back again. So just a quick reminder, we are from YMC. We're a millennial and Gen Z focused marketing communications agency. We do authentic and relevant campaigns with associations, organizations, companies, and consumer brands. My name is Hannah Hickman. I'm the digital marketing director for YMC, and I'm very happy to be here today. And my co-presenter, Molly, will introduce herself now. Molly, you may be on mute or having some tech issues. Okay, I think Molly's having some minor tech issues. She will introduce herself in a little bit. So today we are going to go over executing social media campaigns. A lot of you probably have some experience in this already, or may have already done it and not quite knew what the actual word was or the actual terminology was. So we're going to dive into that, some options, how we can do that, and so forth. So to begin, the big question, what is a campaign? So you guys don't have to answer, we have that answer for you. So a campaign is a coordinated marketing effort to reinforce a business goal using one or more social media platforms in this case, or other marketing tools. They are usually unified in a goal and keep the same strategy for each platform. This is usually a part of your overall marketing strategy. So in the chat, please drop some campaigns that might come to mind. One that is really popular that you probably are very familiar with, Apple did a hashtag shot on iPhone campaign, but that led to a lot of people showing off their own phone photography skills, has even led to a larger activation, like building size billboards featuring these images in the hashtag, usually with very little branding associated. So you could drop those into the chat. There's also a Q&A. If you have questions throughout, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, use the raise hand feature. We are very happy to stop and talk these through. It's on us, the Truth Initiative, Got Milk. Got Milk is a really good one. You will see a lot of larger trade organizations doing a larger campaign, especially with food. Pistachios are probably one of the ones that we're very familiar with at this moment. Leah, I love the death and rebirth of Mr. Peanut. That was a big thing with the Super Bowl. If you look at a lot of the marketing papers, trade papers and all that, you're talking a lot about the Super Bowl, and that is one of the larger ones. One less HPV vaccine campaign, drive sober, get pulled over. These are all great. So these campaigns can range from anything from public health, medical, milk, food, something like that, or even things just like promoting a brand like peanuts or iPhones. So happy that you guys are very familiar with that. Dare is also a very, very good one. Definitely a very interesting one with mixed success, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So let's dive into just some more of these social media campaigns. So Molly, if you are here, if you could send me a quick message. If not, I'm happy to take this over. Give her half a second. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about these campaigns. These campaigns can consist of a few different forms. Some of these have one only, some are multifaceted. Hashtags are a really good way to unify a campaign. That's something that you're probably familiar with, such as with the iPhone one, the hashtag shot on iPhone. These are a great way to unify a campaign across several different platforms. Having a hashtag associated with your campaign and brand is also a really good way to ensure that people are remembering your posts and your brand, and it also really encourages people to participate and interact. Paid advertising is also a very effective tool. It's a great way to get eyes on your content. You could target as broadly or as specifically as appropriate. And a lot of times you don't need to invest thousands upon thousands of dollars. Sometimes a $50 spend can really get you what you need. Challenges are also a really great way to elicit some participation from your audience and beyond. Challenging people usually engages them. When you tell people to do something, they want to prove you wrong or prove you right. While there are challenges that offer prizes, there are many that don't, so don't feel very pressured for that. and try to highlight those who do participate as in resharing them, reposting them, but don't feel the need to give awards. And also if you don't want to reshare them, there's no pressure to. And various other promotions are really helpful in terms of highlighting your services and what you have to offer. A lot of these can come in terms of just promoting what you're talking about, like, hey, we're offering free walk-in appointments. And this can come with some sort of perk. This can include, oh, if you mention you saw this ad, you get X amount off, you get a prize, you get a giveaway, priority access, and so forth. So those are just some examples of social media campaigns that you are very likely familiar with. So we have a few great examples here, just ones that you may be familiar with, some that are also very familiar with us. The shot on iPhone one is very familiar. Just to confirm, can you all see the new tab that I am opening? If someone could just put a thumbs up in the chat, that'd be great. Yes, perfect. Shot on iPhone is a very effective one. You can see all these beautiful pictures, some flowers, some meals, some international sites. And with these, this is a really easy way that Apple was able to get a lot of great information, a lot of great promotion without having to put much money behind it, or really any. And it also really helped to highlight iPhone's quality and really help promote one of the most popular phone brands as there is. They also did do a prize component of that with over 10 winning photos being featured on billboards across the world. This hashtag has over 24 million posts on Instagram, and it's a great way to not only promote these people who are posting, but also for iPhone. So another very popular one is the hashtag Aerie Real. Aerie is a consumer brand from American Eagle. They do loungewear, underwear, women's apparel. This campaign was very unique because it really incorporated a very human approach, very non-filtered. They encouraged women and those who identified as such to post real, quote unquote, real images with no filters, touch-ups, and so forth. It was a real great move on a female empowerment, body positivity, and really was very encouraging. As you can see, there are over 300,000 posts. People are very happy. It's associated with the brand, also a very low lift. And some of these creators were also featured as models in future campaigns. Another one that you may be familiar with, a little less high stakes, is the Adult Swim trend. So Adult Swim is a channel within Cartoon Network. It shows some of the older adult shows, 90s shows, and they have a very iconic intro. And on TikTok, they had people recreate this and so forth. By doing that, usually something very creative, like a loop, such as this. With that, there's now over 80 million TikToks featuring this. So it was a great way to really encourage people to get into it. As you can see in the video, the little AS, Adult Swim, that's really how they do that little promotion. It's very exciting. And then one that you are all very likely familiar with, hashtag VaxForward. It was a joint project with ACHA and the CDC. The Campus COVID-19 Vaccine Initiative aimed to increase vaccination confidence and combat misinformation on campuses. VaxForward was the social media campaign where student ambassadors were able to launch and advocate for vaccines on campus and combat this disinformation. It was a great hybrid campaign, some digital, some in person. And the main goal of this was to engage with a lot of students, those who were very knowledgeable and not so much so. With this, student ambassadors shared posts. A lot of them were featured with college, such as football games, libraries, study sessions. And as a result, there was over 687,000 impressions of social media, and 70% of the ambassadors were told that their work directly resulted in a vaccination. So these are just some examples of very good options for vaccines, VaxForward, health-focused campaigns, and so forth. Back to our presentation. And if you have any chats, just let me know. Any questions going forward? So to start a social media campaign, let's get the very beginning. You need to take some time to plan it and really figure out what you are trying to accomplish. Take some time, take a nice brainstorming session, write out what you want to do. Take these time to set goals. For these goals, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to achieve? What impact does this campaign have on your overall goals? Being able to establish the why will help guide you in your strategy, and it probably will help shift the way you're going to approach things. Make sure that you have realistic goals. It's very easy to make this goal of, we want to start a social media campaign and we will get every single person in our campus vaccinated. That is a fantastic goal. Might not be realistic. I think you should absolutely have that written down somewhere. However, take a step back and do a goal that is, we want 50%, 60, 70, something that is a lot more achievable. But keep those reach goals in mind. It's more of it's fantastic if we reach it. If we not, it does not mean we failed. So with that planning, create a document, create a folder that can be shared amongst all the stakeholders. With this, create a timeline and a roadmap from brainstorm to execution. With these, the goals, and these goals will help determine the tactics you use, the platforms that you will run on, and how you're going to go about achieving these goals. When you set your metrics, you want to make sure that they are making sense to what you are saying. If you want to optimize web traffic, you want to focus on impression and link clicks. If you're trying to get information or leads, focus on signups or submissions. You want to make sure you're focusing on the right things, because if you're measuring it not in the right metrics, you might see failure when there really is success. Determining what success looks like really goes hand in hand with the goals. Determine what this can look like. Say if your goal is to get more people in the door, you can do this by measuring visitors before, during, and after. Informal surveying during these events and during these campaigns are also very helpful. You can ask the people who come through the door, hey, how did you hear about this? It's very helpful to get that live feedback right then and there. You can also talk about if you want more people to sign up for something, conversions are a good way. And a lot of times your social media platforms have built-in analytics that are going to help. And you also really want to focus on your methods. How are you going to achieve this? Can you put money behind it? Is that something that will help? Are you creating your own content? Are you soliciting content from stakeholders? Figuring out your game plan ahead of time and being able to do all this planning helps ensure success. It also gives you a lot more opportunity to be flexible as things change. And yes, we will be sending the recording and the handouts afterwards, which has a lot of helpful tools to plan, to set goals, to make these plans, and do analytics as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about organic campaigns. Organic campaigns are the ones that you are very likely already doing. There's no cost to run. This could be anything from a series of posts across various different platforms with the same aim. And it looks like Molly's back on, so let me see if I can unmute Molly.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, organic campaigns are campaigns that aren't paid. So essentially you're not putting money behind it. This can be a series of different posts across different platforms, but they typically just all have the same aim. And planning an organic campaign should include what you need to create, how much time it will need, how much time you'll need to spend on planning, running the campaign itself, looping in all relevant stakeholders, etc. And it's also a great way to engage several other potential participants so that you can boost your campaign launch and reach. So it's a really great way to kind of have a collaborative element if you don't have sort of the payment issue to work through with other participants. And throughout the campaign, it's really important to monitor how it's performing. So if no one is interacting or seeing the campaign, then clearly you need to reevaluate your tactics. And if you set it up and forget that there's a campaign running, there's a larger chance that you won't succeed, or at least you won't find the level of success that you were hoping for when initially planning out the campaign. So setting goals around organic campaigns should focus more on performance and not so much revenue. So the KPIs for an organic campaign would be a little bit more qualitative and kind of based on public opinion, public persona, rather than something like generating sales. And paid campaigns tend to have more guaranteed minimum metrics. So, don't be discouraged if you don't achieve your goals initially on your first organic campaign launch. There's a real art to it. So take some time to adjust expectations and set realistic goals.
So paid campaigns, let's talk about those. Many of the campaigns that you mentioned in the beginning were paid campaigns. These are ones where there is money behind the post for promotion. If this is a very new practice for your department or organization, we highly, highly suggest engaging somebody who is a third-party contractor or someone who is very familiar. A lot of these things are a bit complicated, not very clear, and entering the space can be tricky. And a lot of the settings are not entirely clear unless you're already familiar with them. Definitely for the first one, get some guidance as possible. So doing this is a really great way to guarantee eyes on your content and usually have very easily understood returns. You can campaign your targets very broadly, very narrowly as desired. I will say that there are increasing limitations on targeting. A lot of this is to avoid discrimination. For example, if you are running a campaign for your school, you can target people who are currently attending your school with interests in anything, say healthcare, soccer, dogs, advocacy, really anything that would be relevant and really does capture that. However, if say you are running a campaign that is targeted towards students who identify as LGBTQ+, you cannot target by sexual orientation. Same with political belief. This is to make sure that you aren't discriminating, whether intentionally or unintentionally. There are ways to reach this audience, such as targeting people who like certain pages related to this information. Say that you do have an LGBTQ alliance on campus, you can target people who like that page. So there are ways to quote unquote get around it, but you're not going to be directly targeting people in that way. And this is a great advantage over organic campaigns. Of course, organic, it kind of just goes out into the void. People who like your page will see it, maybe not anyone else, or people who aren't necessarily relevant. Whereas the paid one, you could say, these people are going to see this, and they're going to see it X amount of times per day. For these campaigns, you can also set very specific metrics, such as a targeted cost per click, maximum bid. And with this, it will make sure these campaigns are targeted in a way that, and are delivered in a way that will make sure that you achieve these metrics. Many of these platforms are going to give you an estimate on how their performance is going to do based on how you are targeting and your budget. As we said before, not all campaigns need a lot of money. $50 can really do a lot for certain platforms. You also want to make sure that if you are putting money behind somewhere, you want to put it in the right place. Not everything needs a paid campaign. Not every platform is made for paid campaigns for certain sizes. The best place that you are going to see the best returns on and the best way to get your product going forward or your campaign goals achieved, Facebook and Instagram, they are probably the best for paid campaigns. They have great targeting, very specific. Also, they have access to an immense amount of user demographic information. For these, they have usually a guaranteed minimum, like you are going to achieve X amount of impressions, these many link clicks. Yes, those guarantees are not 100% set in stone, but you will generally achieve and exceed those. You also don't need a very large spend for these. It's very easy to run Facebook and Instagram ads simultaneously because they are run from the same ad platform. Another one that you might be interested in is Twitter. Twitter is not highly advised for advertising in general for smaller organizations or ones who are not doing large national campaigns. Their targeting is not as useful. A lot of people on Twitter are not using their real names, their real information. So in that case, you are not going to have a really great targeting and your money is going to be better used elsewhere. TikTok advertising is something that has been talked about very frequently. It is extremely effective. However, because of the vast network they have, you need to invest a lot of money to even get seen. It's a very highly trafficked app. There's tons and tons and tons of content out there. I do not believe there's a way for me to adequately tell you how many hours of content is uploaded every second. So in order to make a dent and to get your goals and to get to the right people, you're going to need to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. You are much better off doing an organic campaign on this platform because there is a better chance of it going viral. People also for TikTok, the younger generation does tend to respond better to organic content because paid content, sometimes there's a lot of suspicion around that. Molly will talk about hybrid campaigns.
Yeah, so a hybrid campaign is clearly a combination of organic methods and paid methods. So this really is the best bang for your buck when you're thinking about how to maximize your resources in a digital campaign. Essentially utilizing some money to boost your posts, especially on Instagram and Facebook, combined with organic posts and other kind of pushes can allow you to reach a broader audience and benefit from paid advertising without putting too much money behind it. It can go both ways, wherein there's an organic campaign that you boost with financing, or there's a paid campaign that you encourage people to internalize and post on their own for any kind of motivation. And one note about a hybrid campaign is that despite running one singular campaign, the metrics will likely need to be measured separately. So there should be two separate goal components. The different measurements of success for paid and organic campaigns, as we've discussed, is pretty different. And trying to count them as a singular metric won't always succeed. So that's another quick note, but in terms of kind of getting the most out of your campaign, some model like this is probably your best choice.
Perfect. And just a quick note, we talked about Facebook campaigns a lot. Facebook is very effective, especially if you're trying to reach parents, administrators, faculty, and so forth. Facebook makes it very easy to do a very, very quick campaign. It's called a post boost. These are very effective if you were just trying to promote one little thing, one singular post. In terms of a larger campaign, we tend to discourage that because it is more singularly focused on one thing. And you will get a better bang for your buck running a larger sustained campaign rather than just a quick boost. So just something to keep in mind, it's effective, not for a larger campaign though. So executing your campaign. There is a lot of different moving parts here. It's going to take some work. I know many of you have multiple roles, you're wearing many hats. This isn't going to be the only thing that you're doing. So it can be as much or as little work as you can make and adjust for. So to execute your campaign, let's think about the schedule. How long is it going to run? How often are you going to be posting about it? You don't need to be posting about it every single day, every minute. You can include your other posts and other topics within your feeds, but definitely come up with a plan in terms of length and frequency. Getting the word out early for some campaigns, especially regarding events or anything that is time sensitive, is important, but there is such a thing as too early. Say you are telling everyone about an event 2 months in the future, what are the chances they're going to remember it? And even if you have that campaign running for 2 months, after a certain point, people will start tuning out that if they're very familiar with it. Same goes with too late. If is your audience going to an attend event that you are promoting the morning of, or are they going to participate in a challenge that you're not giving enough notice for? So figure out what timing works for you. If it's an ongoing thing, the timing doesn't matter as much, say as appointments, letting people know, raising awareness and so forth. But for specific time sensitive things, you need to find that happy balance between not too soon, not too late. So running your campaign will be much easier if you are able to create content ahead of time. These can include infographics, post copy, images, and so forth. If you have an entire arsenal of those ahead of time, a lot less thinking you need to do, a lot less planning you need to do, because a lot of these platforms do have scheduling tools available to create these. Many of you have resources already. Canva is something that we will definitely advise about again and again. It's a great free tool that is very user friendly and can help you create a lot of different graphics and information online. For the campaigns where you are soliciting content, say doing a challenge, saying take a picture of you getting a vaccination, take a picture of you here, still have some of those events, have some of those content prepared ahead of time in terms of just information, some of your own content you're generating yourself, because there may be lulls, there may be times where you're waiting to get that content or waiting to get it approved. So you want to make sure you have an ongoing stream of that. So you launched your campaign, whether it's paid or organic. What do you do now? You don't want to just leave it, because there's a good chance that it can get out of control in terms of people are commenting or submitting things or not doing anything with it, or it's being completely ignored. So for paid campaigns, take some time to optimize. This can involve turning ads on and off. Often when you do a campaign, you have multiple ads, multiple audience targeting. Say you have an ad that some of them are performing very well, but this particular one has a very high cost per click. You can turn that ad off, and then that budget will be redistributed among others. You can also shift your budget in the middle of a campaign. Say you have two different audiences, students who like sports, students who like arts. The ones who don't like arts aren't really interacting very well, or your goal is already accomplished. You can shift that budget elsewhere, so you can get more bang for your buck and more of a focus elsewhere. So make sure, in order to look at this for organic, look at your metrics, see what's performing well. Are there certain post types that aren't getting a lot of likes? Are there certain images that are getting a lot of likes? Be sure that you have the ability to be flexible, that you can change your strategy. It's very important to be able to look at your campaign from during and realizing what can and cannot work. With that, measuring metrics is very important. Not just at the beginning and end of your campaign, during your campaign, depending how long it is, once a week, once every few days, just pop some of that information in a Google Sheet. You can see that on Monday, we had 100 impressions and 3 clicks. On Wednesday, we had 500 impressions and 40 clicks. And you can see that, because what if on Friday, you're still at 400 impressions and 30 clicks? What happened? Why did it stop? What changed? Do you need to change your tactic? We did include some analytic spreadsheets, Excel and Google Sheets in that handout that you'll be getting afterwards that can help you track, and it'll help you also make decisions. We also did include a handout just in terms of being able to analyze these and actually make them make sense. there are a lot of information. A lot of it might not mean anything. Some of it might mean a lot. And it does take a little bit of a trained eye, but there is information out there. So we got a Q&A, and Heather just threw that in the chat as well. Who you have running all these campaigns. Yes, so like we said, these can be, a lot of times these are full-time jobs for people. I've had positions in the past where I was running paid campaigns for multiple people, but I've also had this as part of my daily job. It depends on how much that you have in terms of budget, time, and so forth. Planning ahead is going to save a lot of that time. These campaigns also don't need to be overly ambitious. If you just want to promote on Facebook, organically paid, think of a few posts, think of a plan, say for the next 2 months, you really are trying to get more people in the door, post once a week, talk about what you offer, try to make something unified in terms of we're using a specific hashtag, specific image, specific branding. And that you can also really schedule all at once if you can plan ahead enough. Granted, you will want to look at and optimize at some point or another. So you can make sure that it is being effective, but you can schedule ahead. Your campaigns don't need to be overly ambitious. They don't need to be multi-platform. It's great if you have that time and effort too. However, there's a reason there are people whose entire jobs are this. This is something that is very possible to do within your own scope, but just be realistic, start small, and then from there you are able to make this a little bit easier on you. Also using students, also if you have access to interns, a lot of them also do have experience with this, or they're able to access the information a little bit easier considering social media is so second nature to people in Gen Z, they might be able to help. So yes, Heather also threw this in the chat. So that is a great way to, if anyone else has any suggestions, but yes, planning ahead, being able to schedule will save a lot of time. Go back to this. Oh yes, and just for the metrics, just in terms, not all metrics make sense. None of them you're going to get a lot of these metrics to you just automatically delivered. Many of them may not be relevant to you. Just take some time to figure out what's important, what's not. We'll have those handouts that are going to make that a little bit more clear for you. Let's talk about measuring success.
Yeah, so with that, we've talked a lot so far about measuring success and metrics. So we'll explain a little bit about what we mean in terms of success and how to set goals. So it's always good to think of the way that you're going to measure a goal before you set it. So if this is an actionable campaign, you might want to look for things like clicks, signups, impressions, engagements, etc. If you're looking for appointments, examples would be an increase in appointment volume, like between before, during, and after your campaign. There are different tools wherein you can specialize links that can track performance and clicks and engagement and that kind of thing. Mail merges have email opening clicks too. So if these are different ways that you can kind of make sure that a lot of that work is done for you, which I think goes back to our time about our question about kind of how to manage the time. Can be a big time saving measure in determining your success. It's also important at the top of your program to figure out what you do and don't need to know. So what's important to this campaign? If you're not trying to necessarily get action, you're just looking to share information, then something like measuring clicks probably doesn't make the most sense. So you want to sit down and figure out what's worth your time and effort to measure and record and what isn't necessarily directly relevant. And as you continue to run the campaign, you'll learn that what makes the most sense in terms of strategy and metrics might change throughout the campaign. Take new approaches for each micro campaign within the bigger one, and don't be afraid to kind of shift strategies. Adjusting your campaign to respond to performance and circumstances, like Hannah had mentioned, will help you make better decisions going forward. And it will also teach you a lot about your audience, how your audience responds, what they're inclined to engage in, etc. And then lastly, lessons learned. After a campaign, you definitely want to take time to sit down and write up a report. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a formal report. It can just be entirely internal to just your team or even just to yourself. But get your analytics and your initial game plan, and then take some time to reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, what you would do differently in hindsight, etc. And these types of lessons will allow you to improve your campaigns moving forward and kind of add to your knowledge about your audience and how they respond.
Thank you, Molly. But yes, having that wrap up, it's very important to learn lessons going forward. If your campaign quote unquote fails, I don't believe there's really any such thing as failing, or you might not achieve your metrics. It's a good opportunity to learn, to share that knowledge beyond just your department and organization, and take the lessons you learned saying, okay, hashtag challenges don't work, but people really, really like the event promotions that we do. How can we duplicate that going forward? So I would like, before we move on to more of an interactive portion, I would like to actually highlight a campaign that did not do so well, but I think it's just relevant considering today is International Women's Day. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. So last year, Burger King ran a campaign. It was digital and in person, hashtag women belong in the kitchen. This was their International Women's Day tweet. Let me see if we can get a picture of that. There are a lot of great articles about this. They ran a full ad in print, as well as this to promote a scholarship program to get women access to this. It was, in theory, it's a great campaign. They were able to run it on multiple platforms. It got a lot of attention. The messaging was very poor, but that is something I think is a little bit relevant, especially for today. There are campaigns that you can see on a much larger scale. Sometimes it is as simple as a single tweet or a handful of tweets, or even something as massive as a major print ad launching something, such as a scholarship program. Just thought it was a somewhat relevant example, somewhat funny to think about, especially considering what today is. Okay, so let's hear from you. Are there any particular campaigns that have captured your attention before? Are there ones that you've really liked, really haven't liked? The Burger King is probably a very good example of one that isn't good. They have a very great history of running interesting campaigns. A while ago when Facebook campaigns were very big, they did, if you deleted 10 friends from your friend list, you'd get a free Whopper. Those friends would also be notified as such that they were deleted for a burger. Definitely an interesting campaign, a little controversial. We're not encouraging you guys to be controversial, just because it's probably not the right space. But let's talk about some of the campaigns that you like. What have you liked? Are there campaigns that you've participated in, such as the Met Gala challenge that was going forth last year or in the beginning of the pandemic, 2 years ago? Apologize. Are there ones that you've run before? Are there things that you want to talk about more as well? So feel free to raise your hand, throw it in the chat. I believe there's the Q&A feature as well. So yes, Lisa asked about using people having positions as this, to students, interns running the campaign and seeing if it's a reasonable expectation for them in the future. So as an intern, when I was in college, I did a lot of this as well, running these campaigns. Young people do have a very good, fresh perspective on this. They are the ones on social media, they grew up with social media. They have the ability to be a little bit more adaptive and have that time. I think it is something that is very great, not only for them to learn and expand that skill set, but also for your organization, for your company, for your department to stay on top of those trends. With that, I would definitely be careful just in terms of with people leaving and going, if they're very seasonal, tends to be, make sure you have a knowledge sharing set up, a shared Google Drive, an ongoing document just saying, this is what we've done, this is what we haven't done, this is what we want to do, here are some past results. Being able to have a place where this knowledge can be shared will make sure that you're not making the same mistakes over and over again. We'll make sure you're not duplicating efforts. And it's a really just good legacy document to see, okay, our first campaign did awful, but this current campaign is doing amazing. It's a really good way to show progress and to learn. So feel free to drop things in the chat. I have Q&A over here as well. So thank you. There are campaigns out there where people comment, post, or tweet a picture to be entered into a drawing. Those are fantastic. People like winning. People like winning things, whether it is a contest, a prize, or they like being recognized for their efforts. A good example, a lot of campuses I've seen have done tweet your vaccine sticker. A lot of people got stickers, or tweet your vaccine card if that is appropriate as well. So there's a lot of great things for that. Ben wrote about a really great in-person campaign when Fortnite was a thing, loot llamas, the little piñatas that they have hidden around campus, to get students to come to a live event with a charity stream. That's really great. It can be something that's pretty low cost as well. So it's a great way to get that information, get that engagement, and so forth. especially when you can do something for charity. People like scavenger hunts. If you can incorporate some sort of live aspect or something fun like that, you are going to get very great participation. And I've had a great question about what type of content performs the best in social media campaigns. People like images. Videos almost always perform the best everywhere. It's not always feasible to create a video all the time. It does take a little bit more effort than just taking a quick picture or a graphic, but a visual aspect always does great. Videos, photos, infographics. If you can do an infographic, we don't advise using those for paid campaigns. Facebook, especially, and Instagram do not like promoting things with a lot of text in an image. If you can keep that image, the image more of an image, like an actual graphic, an image, and then the actual information elsewhere, those tend to perform better, and Facebook tends to prioritize this a little bit more. But on Instagram for an organic campaign, make those infographics, make an interesting quote graphic. People want to have something that's fun and exciting. We don't typically advise people just sharing text and nothing else. Make sure there's a link, make sure there's a visual aspect. Social media is full. It's absolutely full of people all the time. So you do want to make sure that there is an option that people have a reason to stop and see. Angelica talked about the National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, using their hashtag. Yes, you can also, instead of also creating your own campaign, there are a lot of options to hop on other campaigns. A lot of major organizations have campaigns regarding events, awareness, and you can use that to use your content to join your own campaign and so forth. Of course, a lot of these have media campaigns or media toolkits that you can utilize, so a lot less work for you. And also make sure you're on branding for everything, but just make sure some of them are a little bit more protective, usually more for-profit brands like that. Great comment from North Carolina Central University, a campaign for student vaccination in a competition with rivals. Competitions are always really great, and using those metrics are great. Having that hashtag for both campuses is also really great. Some of these campaigns are going to be more concentrated. There are also some more general campaigns. An example, I'll talk about my alma mater. I went to George Washington University. It is an urban open campus, quite literally a few blocks from the White House. With that, there was a hashtag only at GW. And there were just those specific moments that can only happen there. It was an ongoing, many year campaign that I believe is still ongoing. And students were able to use that. If you look at the hashtag, it's mostly student driven, but GW would also use that in their promotions, in their own campaigns, to create advertisements. So having even like a running campaign like that is pretty low lift. You don't need to be optimizing that all the time, especially if you have an ongoing thing like that. And it's very easy to use that as well. So let's look at the Q&A. Someone asked about categorizing something like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. This was a very multifaceted campaign. It involved people visiting the website, donating money, creating videos, do the challenge, which is dumping a bucket of ice water. Very multifaceted. This was something that it was a full-time job for many people. So a campaign like this for metrics and goals, that it's very multifaceted. For some of the basic metrics, you want to look at impressions and participation. So that would be how many people are posting a video with that hashtag or challenging people. How many impressions are each of these getting? So that is one part of the metrics, and that you can measure success for that in terms of the content being created and the awareness being generated. Awareness is a little bit hard to really quantify, but impressions and engagement are a really good way to get that started. For the website visits, just seeing how many people clicked on a link from a social media post. A lot of times, unless you have specific targeting, you cannot tell the exact post all the time unless you use a UTM code, which is a little bit more complicated. But you can tell that this came from Facebook, which usually is a very good indicator that there was a good campaign. They're getting this from a campaign. Also within the platform, if you are posting it from your own page, you can usually tell the link clicks from as well. And then for money as well, you can do the before and after. What were the rate of donations, the amount of donations before this campaign? What was the rate of donations after? So I believe the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, they raised millions upon millions of dollars for ALS research, and it did directly result in some research breakthroughs, which is very, very amazing. This was a very multifaceted campaign with a few different components. So the metrics were definitely not straightforward in a lot of ways. Same with the goals. To set the goals, you would want to probably segment it off a little bit, like how many people are looking impressions, how many people are generating their own content, and how many people are going to the website, how many people are donating, or how much money is being donated. So very multifaceted. It's not very easy to to measure success in those type of campaigns. Granted, it was very, very successful, but if you are going to be running such a multifaceted campaign with multiple goals, realize that you may achieve some goals and may not achieve others. Doesn't mean that the campaign as a whole failed or wasn't successful. It just means that there was more focus on something else. So thank you for that question. That was very good and a very good example. Oh, Leah made a comment about only at institution could go negative. Absolutely. It depends on the campus atmosphere, what's going on. Only at GW, which is the one that I know the most familiar with, just because that is what I participated with. That was a multi-year campaign that really wasn't pushed as much from the campus. It was more like orientation, like the orientation leaders, like only at GW. Other students would encourage other students, but it can go absolutely haywire. There have been controversies and scandals, and those hashtags were absolutely used and brought attention to negative things. It does depend. You're not going to be able to manage a lot of that sometimes with those hashtags, especially if it is so student driven. Just keep that in mind. I do think they are still a great thing as well. But definitely keep in mind if you are having issues on campus or there are some issues, perhaps don't promote that or don't touch those as much or promote telling people to use that as much. Oh, Lisa talked about the hashtag De-Stress Pets campaign, encouraging people to share photos of their pets during final exams. Since they couldn't do in-person animal therapy visits during COVID, this is a great example. COVID has really done a lot in terms of social media participation and getting people to engage. Just because everything is very remote, they are engaging online. Animals are also a fantastic way to get people to engage. Getting people to share, say, a vaccine card or a vaccine sticker might be a little hard. It's a little sensitive. It's very emotionally charged, also very medical oriented, which can be very problematic for some. However, people want to see cute animals. People like to joke that the internet was created for cats, to look at cat pictures, to share cat pictures, to learn more about cats. This kind of goes hand in hand. If you can have some sort of cute element that you can encourage with that, it's going to really help boost participation. It's going to be a feel-good campaign. And also not all your campaigns do necessarily need to be focused on achieving a goal. It can be bring levity to campus, bring some smiles, and it can be something like talk about pets. So Chelsea asked about how specific we can get with targeting. What do you think is the best way to target students on a college campus with a paid campaign? That is great. So you can target by location. There is limits. You can't target necessarily a specific building, but you can target a campus, a town, a zip code, a county, and so forth. You can target by where they go for education. Especially on Facebook and Instagram, you can usually indicate that attends or attended X university, and you can target by that. You can also target people who like certain pages. Say the students tend to like your university main page, you can target by that as well. I do believe there are some limits in terms of if there's only like a handful or under a certain amount of people like that, you can't target because it's a little bit too specific. But you have those options to do by page, by likes, by demographics to a point. Age is also something that you can do. These do change somewhat frequently. I did a lot of advertising for the 2018 midterms, and those metrics changed every day. And the campaigns that I ran then cannot be run today, just due to the way these metrics have been changed. But there are ways to get very specific in terms of location, interests, age, and so forth. Age, not specifically, more of an age range, of course.
And just to add on to that, in terms of the actual content of a campaign for college students, free stuff, it's all about free stuff on college campuses. If you can incorporate like a sweepstakes, wherein if you use a particular hashtag, they're entered into an opportunity to win a gift card or, some, credit to the bookstore or something like that. Students live and die for free stuff. So if there's any way that you can authentically and logistically incorporate that, it's definitely encouraged, and it's going to very much drive engagement.
Absolutely. Gift cards are always a fantastic thing. Amazon gift cards, especially, they can be used everywhere for anything. But also we understand the budgets might not also account for that. Giving away some campus swag, you likely have some t-shirts in your office that might be collecting dust. I remember winning an umbrella for an event on social media in college, and I still have that umbrella. It's still something I think about, and I'm a little happy that I still won that. So little things do carry a good message. And also, worst comes to worst, free food. That is perhaps the most favorite phrase of every college student. It doesn't need to be a full meal. It can be candy. It could be chips. Students want something free. They want free food especially. So that is a great way to think about that. Nina did talk about what metrics are the most important. So we are sending a guide for that. With that, there are so many metrics. Your business suite for your social media page are going to give you absolutely everything. And sometimes it will show you have 0 metrics for something just because that's not what you're doing. So it really just depends on what you're trying to do. Impressions and engagement are really great because that is showing who saw it, who liked it, who's interacting with it. However, it's not the be all end all. If you were just talking about, say you write a post or a campaign, just like, hey, come into the office or come and visit us. Engagement might not be a great thing because if you're trying to get people to come in person, they might not like it or there's not an incentive to like it, but you can measure more of the offline metrics that, oh, we had an increase in visits and appointments this week. If you are trying to get like, hey, comment and share, look at those comments, look at that engagement, look at the engagement rate, which they usually will spell out for you. You can also usually see if you are creating a hashtag, who used that. There are some limitations on the impressions engagement for that, just because you aren't going to be able to access those backend analytics for other people's stuff, but you can see the use of those hashtags. And you can get a little bit of insight with how many likes that image got in comments and so forth. That's going to be a little bit of a more manual thing. But yes, so managing those analytics can take some time, figuring out what is important, what isn't. Reach can be helpful. I don't always love reach because I feel like it's a little bit duplicative of impressions, but if that does work for you and your department, I'll totally suggest that. But we will be sending a guide that goes a little bit more in depth to that. Metrics is probably its own presentation that's multifaceted, so we're not going to go too deep into that, but there are a lot of resources. Ben talks about another great campaign, puppy portraits. For a campus yearbook. We checked out puppies from the local humane society and let students play with them and take portraits. That is fantastic. People love puppies. College students love animals, and they usually don't have a lot of access to animals as well. So it encourages a lot of participation. Also helped with boost numbers, get people interested in the yearbook. Also raise awareness, and puppies were adopted. I mean, truly, there's no better campaign than that. So yes, swag is great. I don't think you need to really make swag for campaigns for the most part because there usually is something somewhere. Universities have stockpiles of t-shirts and other things somewhere. Even if it's not department specific or even something that isn't necessarily up to date, sometimes logos change, branding changes, you can usually still give them away. Students like that. They like the vintage aspect if it is a little bit older. And if it's something useful, like say an umbrella or a cup or a mug, students are going to flock to that. And it can be something like post a picture, you'll be entered in for a chance to win a mug or to get a bag of campus swag. So those are all very great options. So yes, campaigns are they can be as big or as small as you want. They can be just telling people to come in, and that's a post once a week on your social media for the school year, for 2 months or so forth. They can be something as complicated as we're raising money, post a challenge, talk to people, do a dance, share pictures. It depends on your capacity. We don't think one is necessarily better than the other, just in terms of what you're trying to achieve. We understand that these can be very deep, complicated, and involved, but do what makes sense for you. Don't stretch yourself thin. We talked about this with our peer ambassadors. Social media is meant to be fun. Yes, it is a job for many of us, but if it is something that is stretching your resources and causing other issues, take a step back, reevaluate, change your metrics, or change your strategy. So we have a few more minutes. Any other questions? Feel free to use the raise hand and all of that stuff. Heather just posted a session evaluation with some questions. So make sure to answer that before you end. But I believe it's a little quiet for now. So thank you all so much for participating. Thank you so much for all your questions and for also sharing your own campaigns. This was very great. Makes me want to hang out with some puppies right now and see what other campaigns that I'll be able to use in my own job. So thank you all so much. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I'll give it just a couple more minutes in case there's a question or inspiration you want to share in the chat. And then we will wrap up for the day. You can join us next month for the next installment in this series, and check out our events page for some exciting other series that we're offering. And then I also posted a link. Every couple of weeks, we will provide messaging and graphics that you can just take from us, from ACHA, and put them into your own social media. streams.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for participating.
Thanks, everyone.